Hi, my name is Jen and I am the wife to Scott of Scotty of All Trades, and today I'm gonna take some time to tell you about how I make my homemade bread out of freshly milled flour out of wheat berries. So just a little bit about the grain that you want to use for bread. I actually get my wheat berries from a place called Montana Flour and Grains, and I get it usually in 40 to 50 pounds at a time, and we store it in a sealed 5-gallon bucket. When you're making bread, you want to use a hard wheat berry. So I usually use either a hard red spring berry or a hard white berry. The soft wheat berries are what you'd want to use those more for things like pastries and things like that. Because I make 6 loaves at a time, I need a large mixer. So I have a Bosch mixer. This has a dough hook in it, and this does a really great job of adequately mixing and kneading the dough for 6 loaves of bread. If you wanted to make 1 loaf or 3 loaves of bread, you could easily do that in a stand mixer, like a KitchenAid mixer, but I choose to use the Bosch. The first thing we're going to start out with is 6 cups of warm water. You want your water at a temperature of about 110 degrees. Next, I go ahead and add, this is 2/3 cups of melted coconut oil. You can use other oils. I prefer coconut oil. I like the taste. I also like the nutritional benefits of it. And then I add 1/3 cup of honey. Then I add 2 tablespoons of salt. I use sea salt. I prefer sea salt in most of my cooking. About 7 to 8 cups of flour. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just mix these ingredients until they're blended on a low speed. Once these ingredients are blended in and mixed together, then you go ahead and add your yeast, and you want to add 4 tablespoons of yeast. The reason you don't want to add yeast before the other ingredients are blended is because the salt can actually affect how the yeast blooms. Then I go ahead and I keep adding flour. So what I've done is I prepared my board here with some coconut oil. I usually keep a spoon of coconut oil. I wipe my board down with coconut oil, and I have 2 bowls that the bread is going to do the first rise in, and they are also wiped down with coconut oil. And then at this point you want to get your hands lathered in coconut oil so that the bread doesn't stick to your fingers. And today is actually a great day to make bread. It's a rainy day, there's a lot of humidity in the air, and bread dough is can be very different depending on the type of weather. If it's a hot day, you're gonna turn out differently. You might need more flour, you might need less flour, so it's never exact. Just pulling all of the dough out of my bowl here. It's kind of hard to see, but I just kind of work it out with my fingers and pull it out, and it's coming out nice and clean, which is great. That means the dough is a good consistency. You can see the bowl is fairly clean. So what I do now is I just sort of work the dough. I try to get it into kind of a rectangle shaped blob, and then I take my dough scraper and I divide it just right in half. And then I'm going to put my dough into these 2 bowls for the first rise, and I cover it with a lightweight towel so it can rise in a warm environment. Alright, so now it's been about approximately 25 minutes, and this is our first rise. You can see, especially in the bowl that's smaller, you can see that it's risen quite a bit. And so you want to have your hands again greased. I have my board greased again, and I'm just going to pull the dough right out, and that's what you want to see, a clean bowl inside. And since it's been kneaded in the Bosch mixer, you don't really have to do any kneading again. I kind of form it into as much of a rectangle as I can get it into to make each of the loaves even. And then I take my bread scraper and I divide it, I kind of eyeball it into 3 sections because this is half of the batch, and I want 6 loaves total. So what I do now is I throw it, this is the fun part, I throw it on my board a little bit, and that gets all the air bubbles out and settles everything so that you have a nice even bake. This dough is beautiful today. It's turned out really great, and so all I have to do is kind of form it into the shape of one of my pans, and I push it in the pan and just kind of push it in like that, and I'm ready to go. So now I have my 6 loaves of bread ready for their second rise. I cover them again, and then this is when I want to turn my oven on because it can start preheating while this second rise is happening. And it also actually creates a warm environment so it gets a nice good rise. All right, it's actually been about 20 minutes and I feel like the dough is ready to go. It actually sunk just a little bit. I did move it, but you'll see this one is a great example of what risen dough should look like. It's just kind of coming over the top of the bread pan. So now we're gonna put it in the oven. So the bread has fully cooked. You'll see that it's nice and golden brown, and when I brought it out, I let it sit here on the wire racks for probably 2 to 3 minutes. And now I'm going to turn the bread out onto the wire racks, and it should fall out just really easily. And I flip it over, and once these are all turned out, I will cover them with my towel again and just let them cool. I will put them in plastic bags, sealed plastic bags with all the air out of them. And we actually freeze our bread, so I'll usually keep one out to eat and freeze the others, and they freeze really well.